to Lewiston, the second largest city, but the city with the biggest heart. And we're going to start tonight with a presentation on a proposed public art plan.
Hello, Mayor Cloutier, members of the council, and Administrator Barrett and the team. Thank you very much for inviting us here tonight. I'm Becky Conrad, and this is Darby Ray. I am part of a grant, as is Darby. I was president of the chamber, as folks probably know, and the chamber and the LA Arts were granted a Maine Arts Commission Creative Communities Equal Economic Development, CCED acronym, grant for $75,000. I'm staying with the grant, helping the chamber with that, and Darby is representing LA Arts, the other partner in the grant. I know you have materials in your packet, and I know that we don't have a lot of time, so I just am going to give you kind of a highlight of the grant, why we're here tonight, and then Darby will go into some more details on the proposed plan, and then hopefully you have lots of questions. So the grant had three purposes. They both merged through the cultural plan that LA Arts worked on for our community, and the chamber's areas in that plan are around economic development and tourism. And public art became an idea that we had when we looked at this Maine Arts Commission grant for $75,000. And so that's what we submitted, that if our two communities focused on public art, we would be able to draw both private investment as well as tourism and other opportunities for community development. The three pieces of the grant are to create some public attention around public art, including drafting a plan for each community to have. Both Auburn and Lewiston are looking at a suggested draft that is identical, but we assume that each community will want to do their own bits and pieces to make it special and unique for your own ordinance process. But in general, we've put a plan together that suggests how we should be prepared to address opportunities for public art. The second part of the grant is to have two pieces installed in our community. The bulk of the money, $50,000 plus some incidentals for each artist, will pay for two pieces of art, one piece in Lewiston and one piece in Auburn. And the way the budget year works out for the state, it's possible both of those pieces could be installed in 2020. We do have part two of the funds already, so 2020 for sure we'll have one piece, but if we get our second funding in July, when we believe we will, we'll be able to do two. And there's an RFP process that Darby will talk about to do that. So that's part two. And really, part three is to just have a larger community kind of process on understanding that public art is something that we want to encourage. We have lots of it in the community already. There's a Bates intern doing an inventory right now of pieces that have been installed for a long time and others that are temporary and have been installed recently. But in general, long-term, we'd love to have an ordinance in both cities to invest in public art, but we know that's down the road. So the grant is to start us on a path to be prepared to install art pieces when opportunities arise, and this grant brings the opportunity. So the plan would be certainly supported by a much more in-depth document that would talk about deaccessioning if a piece didn't work any longer, or installation processes and maintenance and all the things that a working committee would do. But we're asking tonight for you to consider looking at a process plan, a plan that has a process for each city to adopt. And I'll let Darby go into more detail.
Yeah, so hi, I'm Darby Ray, and I live at 15 Beers Avenue here in Lewiston. I'm glad to be here. So one thing I want to mention is that the grant that we received was formally supported by the City of Lewiston. The cultural plan received unanimous approval and adoption by the City Council back in 2015 or 16. So this is all part of being in pretty steady conversation with the city. and that's why we're here again. So the public art plan is pretty basic, and it really is trying to do three things. One, and you have it in front of you, is just what are some guiding principles? And this plan is based on plans from all over the nation, and these are kind of the typical sorts of categories that one has in a public art plan. So it's public art is good and we want to encourage it, sort of guiding principles, and then some definitions. What do we mean when we say public art? What's included, what's not included? And then finally, what is the administrative tool for overseeing public art? And so we have a suggestion of a public art committee that might be established. It wouldn't need to be established right this moment, because in fact, we have a public art working group that included mayoral appointments, lots of consultation with the city staff on both sides, and that can serve as this body through the life of this grant, so through 2021, and that gives you all an opportunity, or city leadership an opportunity to see how this works, and then when it comes time to establish a public art committee, perhaps it will line right up with the membership that we currently have, if we think that's a good constitution of the committee. So we would love to see what questions you might have that we can respond to in this little bit of time that we have.
Questions from the council? Councilor Lyson?
Yeah, I wanted to thank you, Becky, for sticking through this grant process. I know how important that is, that continuity, and often that would be the end of the grant, so, because this is, in my opinion, quite needed. I'm just wondering, sample ordinance stuff from other communities, has someone done a research on that? Is that?
We actually have looked at many communities. We've tried to look at similar scale, similar size, and we have lots of documentation we could share if that's something you'd like to look at. This is based on kind of Darby she did a lot of the writing on this, but this is based on kind of the best thinking of all of them we looked at.
And just a point of clarification from me, Councilor Lyson, when you say ordinance, are you talking about, so we're kind of using the language of plan to talk about something that is not including any funding
Right.
obligations at all or mechanisms. And in the next 2 years, we're going to be wanting to have a lot of conversations with both private and public about the possibility of thinking about funding. But that's not the question tonight,
Right.
and this work can go forward regardless of what happens, because some public art is just coming our way. For example, the piece that is funded through this grant. For example, the Choice Neighborhoods grant that is already in hand includes money for public art, but the city has no mechanism for determining, well, how will the public art be decided upon, and who will advise us on these matters? So that's really, we think that it's actually timely and somewhat urgent for the city of Lewiston to go ahead and have something in place that allows for experts on public art to bring recommendations to city staff and leadership so that you can make informed decisions about things that are coming down the pike.
Thank you.
Councilor Ray?
Thank you. So I wanted to thank you too as well. So Becky and Darby reached out to me as the school committee representative to see if the schools had any existing language on this, and we do not. And so it was good for me to realize what a need it was for the city municipal side and also the school side. And it was great to read in the packet as well that there are public school appointments from each community as well, because I think as Darby had asked me to help contribute to that list of existing art, and I thought of all those beautiful murals at the Lewiston High School. The Farwell sculpture was another example, and so the infusion of that public art and the continuity from the city side to the school side is really important to me, and I hope to the rest of the body, so thank you for raising that.
Councilor Pettengill?
I just want to say thank you for doing this and sticking with it. I'm super excited. Very excited to see something that's going to put art front and center in the community. Like we've talked about, Councilor Lyson and Councilor Ray. It's something that's very needed and it is urgent. And I do hope that we get something put together quickly as far as the working group, so we can move forward with this and capture any opportunities. But I'm super excited for this, and thank you.
Thank you. And just to clarify, the working group is in place, it's just temporary.
Well,
But the committee, we would love to have longer term. That's right, yes, thank you so much.
And Counselor Ray, thank you for bringing up the schools. Not everyone, we realize, is aware that the state of Maine does have a percent for art law, and every time a state-funded building is built, 1% of that funding is meant for a piece of art, and hence the sculpture in front of Farwell School, Adam Stefan's sculpture of the chairs, and then some of them are inside schools, but so we do own public art in our city, and that's why we asked Councilor Ray if maybe there's already a policy on certainly maintenance and upkeep, but we haven't found one yet.
Is there some at Connors, public art for
Yes.
Connors?
Yes.
Yes.
There is,
Inside.
we approved it as a school committee, the piece that would be going in after the RFP process, yeah.
So we're really suggesting citywide a process similar to when a school is built, tending to be the most, those are the public buildings we tend to build most often.
Other questions or comments on the council? Great, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Do I have a-
If everybody's okay with it, we'll put this back on a council agenda for December 3rd for just adopting this as a kind of conceptual framework to begin working from.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Do I have a motion from the Counselor of Ward
Yes,
1?
to move to executive session pursuant to MRSA Title I, Section 405-6C, to discuss an economic development issue of which the premature disclosure of the information would prejudice the competitive bargaining position of the city.
Thank you. Thank you. I have a motion by Counselor Lyson, seconded by Counselor Ray. All those in favor? Yeah, very dramatic interpretation, Jim. Please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we're going to start with an update from the Lewiston Youth Advisory Council. Hi, Hope.
Hello, my name's Hope Rubito. I'm chair of the Lewiston Youth Advisory Council, and I'm here to update the City Council on what we've been doing the past couple weeks. On November 2nd, we hosted the Lewiston Places Trunk or Treat event in the parking lot of Connors Elementary, and it went really well. We had a great turnout. This event was to inform residents and visitors that Lewiston has over 35 square miles and has a multitude of activities and places to go. To do that, each LEAC member decorated his or her trunk about a different place, and we appreciate the places that loaned us props. LEAC members chatted with families explaining what their respective trunk was highlighting, and LEAC members reported that children were excited to see what the next trunk was about. Some were excited to visit where they were hearing about too. LEAC members also handed out free tickets to a Maine Nordiques game at the Colisée, free tickets to Museum LA, and free Lewiston Recreation t-shirts. Although LEAC members were in costume characters and gave out Halloween candy as a trunk or treat should, this was clearly an educational event. Our decorated trunks featured Thorncraig, the Gendron Franco Center, the Lewiston Public Library, the Public Theater, Lewiston Recreation, Museum LA, the YWCA, Kennedy Park, Pettingill Park, Lewiston Fire Department, Jude's Place at Marcotte Park, Lewiston City Hall, Androscoggin Bank Colisée, and Lewiston Public Schools. In addition, the Lewiston Fire Department had a truck and crew present. School Superintendent Todd Finn popped by. The family of namesake Jude of Jude's Place at Marcotte Park was at the decorated trunk, as well as an appearance by Councilor Pettingill. Next on our agenda is a meeting on November 20th at 6:30 p.m. here at City Hall. LEAC will be participating in a focus group meeting with the city's new branding team, Warp and Weft. We look forward to this experience. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we're going to do a mayoral proclamation for Pancreatic Cancer Awareness Month. And I'm going to talk a little bit about who we're presenting the proclamation to and then read the proclamation. So the mission of the Purple Iris Foundation is to raise awareness, provide support, and give hope to individuals and families affected by cancer in Maine. Christina Couch founded the Purple Iris Foundation as a result of what was then her 18-month journey through pancreatic cancer. She was given the life-changing news on June 16, 2008. She was understandably in shock and was told that she had only 3 to 6 months to live with treatment. She was appalled and decided that no one in her lifetime should be given this news. Thus, the Purple Iris Foundation was born to help raise awareness and support her fellow patients. 11 years later, Christina is proud to say that she is a survivor, and she is living proof that there is hope. So the proclamation recognizing Pancreatic Cancer Awareness Month, whereas pancreatic cancer is currently the 3rd leading cause of cancer-related deaths in the United States and is expected to become the 2nd leading cause of cancer-related deaths in the United States by 2020. And whereas, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the state of Maine ranks 3rd with the highest prevalence of pancreatic cancer. And whereas early diagnosis is challenging with often vague symptoms that could include many different conditions within the abdomen or gastrointestinal tract. And whereas the Purple Iris Foundation is providing awareness, hope, and support for those impacted by pancreatic cancer. And whereas the City of Lewiston, in an effort to support those efforts, has lit the clock faces of City Hall's tower purple for the month of November as part of the Light the Night Purple awareness campaign. And whereas the Purple Iris Foundation is commended for its outreach and compassionate advocacy. Now therefore, I, Kristen Cloutier, serving as Mayor of Lewiston, Maine, do hereby officially recognize the month of November 2019 as Pancreatic Cancer Awareness Month. And I believe Phyllis Couch, who is Christina's mom, is here to accept this proclamation. Is that right? Okay, great.
Actually, Christina.
Oh, nice to meet you.
Good to meet you too. Thank you so much.
And then we have a second mayoral proclamation honoring National Education Support Professionals Day. I will read some information about that and then the proclamation. So the National Education Association is celebrating this week as American Education Week, and each day has a different focus regarding education. American Education Week provides Americans with an opportunity to celebrate public education and honor individuals who are helping to ensure that every child receives a quality education. Tomorrow, November 20th, is National Education Support Professionals Day, and this evening I am proclaiming that day here in Lewiston through a proclamation that I will read. To accept the proclamation, we have a star in our midst, as Karen Choate is with us. Karen, are you great? She is an ed tech at Lewiston High School and is the 2019 Maine Education Association's Support Professional of the Year. Congratulations. We applaud you for your dedicated efforts on a daily basis. Our future will be in the hands of today's children, and it's reassuring to know that individuals like yourself are effectively engaging with them as part of their educational journey. So thank you. So, proclamation recognizing National Education Support Professionals Day. Whereas public schools provide young people with essential knowledge, skills, and tools to personally succeed and to positively contribute within communities and the nation as a whole. And whereas education support professionals are an integral part of the education process. And whereas education support professionals provide a safe and healthy learning environment for students. And whereas they work tirelessly to serve children and communities with care and professionalism. And whereas education support professionals are being celebrated during American Education Week, which is November 18th through the 22nd, 2019. Now therefore, I, Kristen Cloutier, serving as Mayor of Lewiston, Maine, do hereby proclaim Wednesday, November 20th, 2019 as National Education Support Professionals Day within the city of Lewiston. May we reflect upon the impact of education support professionals within Lewiston. So Karen, if you want to. And now we will open it up for a public comment period. So any member of the public may make comments regarding issues pertaining to Lewiston City Government that's not covered elsewhere on the agenda. And we allow 3 minutes per speaker and a maximum time of 15 minutes for all comments. Does anyone have public comment?
Is it not for today's agenda points?
It's for anything that's not currently on the agenda. There'll be public comment for agenda items when that agenda item comes up. Going once, twice, okay. Kathy?
Yes. All roll call votes for this meeting will begin with the counselor of Ward 6. The next is consent agenda. There are 5 items on the consent agenda this evening. Item number 1, order authorizing execution of a municipal quitclaim deed for real estate located at 47 Russell Street. Number 2, order authorizing execution of a municipal quitclaim deed for real estate located at 1128 Lisbon Street. Number 3, order authorizing the execution of a municipal quitclaim deed and any other related documents for the sale of the property at 67 Oak Street. Number 4, order authorizing the execution of a municipal quitclaim deed and any other related documents for the sale of the property at 175 Stetson Road. And item number 5, authorization to accept transfer of forfeiture funds.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilor LaJoy, seconded by Councilor Ray. All those in favor?
It's unanimous. Motion passes by a vote of 7-0, sorry.
Agenda item number 6.
Item number 6, public hearing on the renewal application for a special amusement permit for live entertainment for Fishbones American Grill, 70 Lincoln Street. Requested action to grant a special amusement permit for live entertainment to Fishbones American Grill, 70 Lisbon Street.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilor Ray, seconded by Councilor Lyson. Any discussion on the council? To the public? Back to the council? Call the roll.
Counselor from Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
Yes.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
And Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Agenda item number 7.
Item number 7, ordinance amending section 50-19 of the Code of Ordinances, offenses and miscellaneous provisions prohibiting the use of tobacco products in designated areas, Lisbon Street, Adams Avenue to Main Street, both sides. Requested action to approve final passage of the ordinance amending section 50-19 of the Code of Ordinances, offenses and miscellaneous provisions prohibiting the use of tobacco products in designated areas, Lisbon Street, Adams Avenue to Main Street, both sides.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Counselor Ray, seconded by Counselor Pettingill. Any discussion on the council? Counselor Larson?
I had a question. Is there any signage that will be designating these areas? And if so, I think I brought up, I know some of the signs that were being installed in areas that were supported by other programs, you couldn't add language to their signs, but we could add an additional sign. And to me, I think the issue is, and I think I've heard some talk about council overreach or whatever on smoking, but to me, the issue is that it's unhealthy to smoke. But if we could have a sign to say, if you need help quitting, call this number, or here's a web page or email address, or something that could say, we acknowledge that this is a difficult issue, but it's better and you're healthier if you're not smoking, and not secondhand smoke's not affecting other people. So, but maybe some signage to go in conjunction with some of that signage, or even on the signage that we're talking about. I don't know if we've designed that yet, Dale, or not.
No, what we've looked at so far is the signage that we've been using in parks and a little bit of that. We thought about, and I haven't had a chance to talk to the administrator yet, about adding a small plaque to it indicating that it's by ordinance and that it's not just an inference. I know you mentioned it last time, we really haven't had a chance to talk about, the prevention portion of things, but we certainly can chat about that.
Great.
Just to follow up on that, Mary from Healthy Androscoggin is here, and I know we were talking about some signage that HA was going to provide. So can you talk about what will be on that signage?
Hello, Mary Karen, Healthy Androscoggin. And so the signage that Dale mentioned, we were able to get through our grant funding for the parks. We could get similar signage for the downtown area, but we would also be able to, we talked about working together, come up with another smaller sign that has some of those quit resources available on it. And so we'd be happy to work with you all on it. I think it's just a matter of timing as far as when, if this passes, and then moving forward with that. And then we also have some window clings that folks can put up in windows along Lisbon Street that have information about the Maine Tobacco Helpline, which is a great free resource for folks to utilize.
Great, thank you. Other questions on the council comments? All right, to the public, just a reminder, either step to the microphone or this table in front and state your name and address for the record.
My name is Carl Shaleen, and I live at 11 Morse Avenue in Lewiston. And while I'm here on behalf of myself for the property and business I own on Lisbon Street, I just came from the office where apparently it is, I've been told smoking is bad for your oral health. So, yeah, this is, I know I spoke here before but on this, but this just makes a ton of sense. And I think it's, yeah, it's something that we need to do to move this community forward and, ensure that downtown Lewiston is business friendly. So thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is David Dubord. I reside at 95 Cumberland Avenue in Lewiston. I also own a building and a business located at 86 Lisbon Street in Lewiston, and I'm here tonight to speak in support of the change in ordinance that would prohibit smoking on Lisbon Street. To me, this issue is a public health issue and a quality of life issue, and I've spoken to this group before about that. Regarding public health, the dangers of secondhand smoke are well known, and they're detailed in the preamble to the ordinance that you have before you tonight. The Surgeon General of the United States has determined there is no safe level of secondhand smoke. In my opinion, promoting public safety and the public welfare are among the most important and exclusive functions of any governing body, including this council. Regarding quality of life, prohibiting smoking in the city's downtown business district will serve to attract more people, patrons to the downtown businesses, and additional businesses to Lisbon Street. Again, I previously spoke about my experience this fall in Brunswick, where I spent a Saturday on the main street in Brunswick where smoking is prohibited. Business doors were open because there was no smoking outside to come into the business, and so it was more inviting. People were walking up and down the street and were doing so without hazard to their health. And I'm sure the council will remember when this ordinance was brought up for workshop, how many of the downtown business owners spoke in favor of it and very enthusiastically. And I would remind the council that even some of the buildings, including the main district court, currently have signs saying that there's no smoking is prohibited within so many feet of their buildings, even though there's no ordinance to that effect. And lastly, I would like to put this in perspective. According to the city's website, the city has 188 miles of public roads. The distance from Adams Avenue to Main Street is 0.7 of a mile. I think the city has plenty of room to smoke, plenty of other places where people can smoke, and if we want to promote a good and healthy downtown, a vibrant downtown, this ordinance should be passed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Michael Dostey, J. Dostey Jewelers at 4 Lisbon Street. I wanted to speak about the signage that Jim had mentioned, and I wanted to let you know that as long as the city isn't going to charge for 60 permits, I would like to work with Healthy Androscoggin to create some temporary signs to if this ordinance should pass, to help educate the public so that it's not just a sudden snap and a big change that could indicate that it is a new city ordinance and can reference some resources for smoking cessation. And I imagine this taking place, or this looking very similar to when Build Maine comes to the city and they do temporary signage made out of coroplast that 6 inches by 9 inches that are zip tied to things. And that's something that I can talk with council more or city administration if that's something that you'd wish.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment period on this item? All right. So we have a motion
We
and
do,
a second.
yes.
Further discussion on the council? Councilor Markham.
When will this take effect?
It takes 30 days after the council has approved it.
And is this a first reading or second reading?
Second.
Okay, because the agenda item did not state.
Right, in the motion, I mean, in the heading it doesn't, but in the motion at the bottom of the requested action, it does say to approve final passage.
Thank you.
Councilor Ray.
I just wanted to thank the folks who worked on this, and especially Healthy Androscoggin. I had such a comprehensive meeting with Mary Karen about this and about what resources exist for education before we move straight to enforcement, as Mike Dostey just referenced as well. So excited that we could be responsive to businesses and also work to better our community's health in the same motion.
Thanks. Further discussion on the council? Call the roll.
Counselor from Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
Yes.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
And Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Agenda item number 8.
Item number 8, public hearing and final passage regarding an amendment to the Traffic and Vehicles Ordinance to establish a student drop-off and pickup zone designation. Requested action that the proposed amendment to the City Code of Ordinances, Chapter 70, Traffic and Vehicles, Article 4, Stopping, Standing, and Parking, Section 70-180, Student Drop-Off and Pickup Only, receive final passage by a roll call vote.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion by Councilor LaJoy, seconded by Councilor Lyson. Any discussion on the council? Can we just get a
Sure.
You?
This is really just a housekeeping matter. We made an amendment to the traffic schedule regarding the elementary school that Counselor LaJoy was working with. I'm blanking on the name of the elementary school, I'm sorry.
McMahon.
I'm sorry, McMahon. And so we created some designations in the traffic schedule, but then we discovered after the fact that there's really no authorization for that in the city code, so we're just sort of taking care of that. So this is just creating a section in the city code to have this particular zone. The traffic schedule designates the times and the days. This creates the authority in which to do that.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Any discussion on the council? To the public? Back to the council. Call the roll.
Counselor from Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
Yes.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Agenda item number 9.
Item number 9, public hearing and final passage regarding an amendment to the business licensing ordinance regarding adult use and medical marijuana. Requested action to conduct a public hearing and approve final passage of the proposal to ordinances, Chapter 22 Businesses, Article 15, Adult Use and Medical Marijuana, Sections 22-420 through 22-444.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Counselor Ray, seconded by Counselor Beam. Any discussion on the council? To the public? Back to the council. Call the roll.
Counselor from Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
Yes.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Agenda item number 10.
Item number 10, public hearing and final passage regarding an amendment to the zoning and land use code regarding adult use and medical marijuana. Requested action to approve final passage for amendments to the City Code of Ordinances, Chapter Appendix A, Zoning and Land Use Code, Article 2, Definitions, Article 5, Administration and Enforcement, and Article 11, District Regulations.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Counselor Ray, seconded by Counselor Lyson. Any discussion on the council? To the public?
Madam Mayor, councilors, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Dan Thayer. I live in Durham, Maine. My business is Thayer Corporation and LifeSpring Microclimates. We're located in Auburn, but we work in this field extensively, both in Maine and outside of Maine. First compliment to the staff that created the ordinance, because there was no guidance from either the state or Maine Municipal Association. So it was a great deal of work to produce this. So compliments to staff. I don't want to say anything tonight that would be considered major and substantive that delays the passage of this, because it's quite important that we get this done so we can deal with the pent-up demand in the community. However, there's one use of a term in there that seemed a little bit callous. I want to draw our attention to it because I know staff will work with us on this, and that is the two words inherently dangerous. They come into context in the manufacturing process, specifically extraction process, and the references is to the safety of the hydrocarbons used in the extraction process. Unfortunately, the state statute, LD 238, created a definition of what inherently hazardous was. It's in conflict with all the building codes and the state fire marshal's office. So those of us who have to seal drawings and stamp these facilities as being inherently safe are now conflicted with what the statute says at the state level and what the building codes say. I think it's a pitfall to even reference inherently dangerous in a local ordinance, because let the state work that through. So I think this is something that could be worked with at staff level, but I did want it to go on the record because it's quite important that every facility that's licensed in Lewiston or any other place is inherently safe. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Any other? Do you have something to say, Dave?
I do.
Okay.
With respect to Mr. Thayer's comment, I think we may be all set, but I don't disagree with him that there's some conflicts or maybe confusion with some of the definitions of what an inherently hazardous substance is and how we have it referenced in our ordinance. State law does define that both under adult use and medical marijuana, and in the ordinance that you just passed, because the one that you're acting on right now is the zoning and land use provisions. So the one that you just acted upon actually makes that reference to inherently hazardous substances. And it basically says, whatever the state allows, we're gonna allow. So if it's good for the state, it's good for us. But I think he's right that there is some issues that need to be resolved between building codes and what the state statute's looking to do. The other point I wanted to raise while I'm up here, and I will send an email out to the marijuana group that I have, but should you folks act favorably upon this tonight, it's important for people to know that this ordinance doesn't become effective for 30 days. So that's either gonna be December 19th or the 20th, however we count on the calendar here. We're not gonna accept new applications, or we're not even gonna have applications available until that date. So if there are people that are anxious and eager, and I know there are because I get a phone call almost every other day, nothing is gonna change for 30 days, and at 30 days, they can start going to the clerk's office and receiving applications and then bringing them back and having them processed. So just wanted that known for those that are interested.
Thanks. Any other questions from the public? Comments? Back to the council. Call the roll.
Counselor from Ward 6,
Yes.
Ward 7,
No.
Ward 1,
Yes.
Ward 2,
Yes.
Ward 3,
Yes.
Ward 4,
Yes.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 6 to 1.
Agenda item number 11.
Item number 11, public hearing and final passage for land use code amendments regarding nursery schools in additional zoning districts. Requested action that the proposed amendment to Appendix A, Article 2 definitions and Article 11 district regulations of the city's zoning and land use code concerning changes to the definition and classification of nursery schools receive final passage by a roll call vote.
So move.
Second?
I have a motion by Counselor LaJoy, seconded by Counselor Pettingill. Any discussion on the council? To the public? Back to the council? Call the roll.
Counselor from Ward 6,
Yes.
Ward 7,
Yes.
Ward 1,
Yes.
Ward 2,
Yes.
Ward 3,
Yes.
Ward 4,
Yes.
and Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7 to 0.
Agenda item number 12.
Item number 12, ordinance amending section 50-19 of the City Code of Ordinances, offenses and miscellaneous provisions prohibiting the use of tobacco products in designated areas of Central Maine Medical Center. Requested action to approve the ordinance amending section 50-19 of the Code of Ordinances, offenses and miscellaneous provisions prohibiting the use of tobacco products in designated areas, Central Maine Medical Center.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Counselor Lyson, seconded by Counselor Beam. Any discussion on the council? Counselor Ray.
Just clarifying that since the workshop that we had on this, the map has been updated to just the campus surrounding Hammond Street, High Street, and Main Street.
That's correct. It would just now cover the immediate area around the Central Maine Hospital campus, which does include just one side of Main Street, Hammond Street, High Street.
Thank you.
Any further? Counselor Lyson.
Yes, I know with the recent expansion that is between High Street and Holland, which is going to be the cancer center, which would seem to be something we would want to do as well.
Yeah,
down the road.
that of course is just beginning. They certainly have to go through a state certificate of need process and some other things before they get to the point of building, but certainly that could be something that could be changed later on.
Okay, thank you. Just pointing it out.
Further discussion on the council? To the public? Back to the council? Counselor Marco.
In workshop, I objected to the Main Street portion, and I still object. I do have a question along Hammond Street, since I don't categorically remember that discussion. Are the properties on the left side, as you look at the map, owned by CMMC?
Yes.
Okay. And are there patient entrances along that corridor on the left side?
To be honest, I'm not sure. I know that there are entrances into the building on that side. I don't know to what extent they are used for patients. I do believe that one end of that, in fact, the corner of Hammond and Maine, the building there on the Central Maine campus is their cancer facility and does have patient entrances. I think we may have somebody here who can answer that question. Help me out.
I'm David Tuppins. I'm the president at Central Maine Medical Center. Yes, we have the Auburn House right on the corner there that both houses patients as well as family and visitors that need temporary housing.
Hey, I am familiar with the temporary housing. I've had a family member that needed to utilize that a few years back. I don't have any objection to both sides of High Street or Hammond Street at this point, but the Main Street corridor does not necessarily have patient entrances. If it's ambulatory, coming off of Main Street down into the lower area and under the canopy, it's not necessarily where pedestrians would be entering the building. And like I said in workshop, you have people who traverse through Lewiston. We try to encourage people to walk more. Some of those people are going to smoke. So if they're coming down Main Street or going up Main Street on that particular side, from, let's say, Longley Bridge to the Veterans Bridge or reverse, they're going to have to know that they can't smoke there. They'll have to put cigarettes out just prior. We already know what that does on Lisbon Street with all the debris. I don't believe that Main Street should be included in this graphic.
Further discussion on the council? Call the roll.
Council from Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
No.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 6 to 1.
Agenda item number 13.
Item number 13, ordinance amending Chapter 2, Article 3, Divisions 12, 13, and 14 of the Code of Ordinances, Department of Public Works. Requested action to approve the ordinance amending Chapter 2, Article 3, Divisions 12, 13, and 14 of the Code of Ordinances, Department of Public Works.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Counselor Ray, seconded by Counselor Pettingill. Any discussion on the council? To the public? Back to the council? Call the roll.
Madam Mayor, just one quick clarification, so you see it, section 2-400. We did make it clear that the Public Works Director serves as a city representatives on the Lewiston Auburn Water Pollution Control Authority, the Lake Auburn Watershed Protection Commission, and the Androscoggin Transportation Resource Center. Last time around, that wasn't specified. It was implied as a possibility. Here, it actually goes ahead and indicates that those appointments are being made in effect by ordinance.
Thank you. Call the roll.
Council from Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
Yes.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7 to 0.
Agenda item number 14.
Item number 14, request to approve first passage for proposed amendments to existing contract rezoning for the properties at 10, 35, and 37 Avon Street, and to refer the proposal to the planning board for their review and recommendation. Requested action to approve first passage of the proposal to amend the contract rezoning for the properties at 10, 35, and 37 Avon Street, and to refer to the planning board for its review and consideration the proposal for an amendment to contract for an amendment to the contract rezoning for these 3 properties.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Counselor Lyson, seconded by Counselor Pettingill. Can we just get a overview, Doug?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll just give you a real quick summary. Saxon Partners LLC, of which we have some folks with, here tonight, has submitted a request to modify the existing contract rezone that took place back in April of this year in order to reduce the density standard for 10 Avon Street from 1,180 square feet per dwelling unit down to 1,000 square feet in order to consolidate all the residential units onto that one property at 10 Avon Street. The original contract zone was approved to allow 2 buildings on 2 separate properties. Saxon Partners would like to build all the units on that one property at 10 Avon Street. James Bass is here tonight. He could answer any questions you might have or elaborate a little bit more if you want to get more information. And then that the planning board will be taking this up at their November 25th meeting to consider this and make a recommendation back to you. So I'll be glad to answer any questions that you might have. Or Mr. Bass.
Any questions on the council at this time? Councilor Marcotte?
What would happen if the planning board rejected?
It would still come back to you. I believe you would have the authority to approve that, should you choose to, with a supermajority vote.
Supermajority?
Yes.
5 out of 7.
Are you all set? Why don't we send it, oh, sorry, Councilor.
I just had a quick question. So just, I want to make sure I'm understanding this. There were supposed to be 210 units and then 35, and we're now putting 245 in the one spot.
Right. The overall density was approved at 245 units in 2 buildings, and they would like, I guess, for the sake of efficiency's sake, wanting to put all the units, the 245 approved units, onto one structure at this point. That's what's planned on the property at 10 Avon Street. It's a much larger property. The other property would be used for supplemental parking.
And, but in order to do this, they're reducing the size of each unit, not increasing the size of the project.
Correct. It's not changing the density, it's just moving the density over to the other property. And it was locked in at that, by the contract rezoning at 1,180, which limited it to that 210, I believe, on 10 Avon Street. So this adjustment would allow all the 245 units to be constructed on the one property.
I'm asking if the size of the proposed property increases.
The
Are they
buil-
adding another floor or expanding further?
The building
No,
itself.
nothing's changing on the 3 properties collectively. It's all staying the same.
But the building on 10 Avon will be a larger building
Right,
than
that's
initially.
Excuse me if I'm not understanding you, but yeah, that,
Yes.
it would,
Thank you.
the building would be larger to accommodate all those units.
Right.
Okay.
Councilor Lyson?
And what would be allowed on that, on the other side of Avon?
While we still haven't gotten to the development review stage, the sketch that I believe was in your packet showed
Right.
additional parking only, and some covered parking and some surface parking on the, across Avon Street.
To be facilitated by that project?
Correct. It would be for the purpose of the parking for the residents, the overall project.
And the reduction is only from 1,180 to 1,000 square feet, right? So-
That's the major change. Yeah.
Thank you.
Other? Councilor Marcotte?
The diagram in the packet shows 3 buildings on the other side of Avon.
At this point, there's no final decision on the building on 10 Avon Street. I think it appears to be 2 larger buildings, and there's a connecting structure. They're technically all connected together. That's why we're referring to that as one building at this point.
Across the street, those structures are actually covered parking.
Oh, excuse me, for what appears to be small structures, Mr. Barrett's right. They're just covered garages for some of the parking on that lot.
Okay, so that would be part of the construction?
Correct. That's-
Both surface and some covered?
Correct.
And again, all of this will be looked at in more detail as you go through the design review process and the site plan process with the planning board.
Other questions from the council? Oh, sorry.
Just an extra that if you condense the buildings, then you'll have more green space around the buildings, and I'm hoping you'll consider playgrounds or benches or places where people can congregate.
A couple things. One, that the building is going to be slightly larger to accommodate those other units being brought over there. Their sketch plan, concept plan does show some green space. I think it does include an extension of the Riverwalk Trail, but no details have been locked in as far as the actual site plan. Again, as Mr. Barrett said, that's to be determined by the planning board at the development review stage.
Maybe if we could send it with a suggestion that they look into establishing more, as much green space as possible, and with an area where people could congregate. Because I've talked to some people on planning board who really feel like that's an important thing, and I said, Hey.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a concern of the staff too. So we'll make
I'm
sure we look out for that.
it's important to everyone, but I just thought if we had it in the back of our minds, I thought I'd mention it.
Other discussion on the council? To the public?
Good evening, Madam Mayor, fellow councilors. My name is James Bass. It's good to see you again. I'm an attorney in Augusta. I represent Saxon Partners. And Doug did a great job of describing the project. We do have a site map, if that would be helpful to see. But if you have your packets in front of you, you've got Avon Street, and then on the riverside you have 10 Avon Street, which is about 5.71 acres. And then across the street you have 35 and 37 Avon Street. Those two properties are about 1.17 acres. And so the original plan was to put two buildings, one housing 210 units on 10 Avon, the big parcel, and then across the street on 35 and 37, we'd have another building housing 35 units for a total of 245. So we came to you requesting a contract zone change for some amendments. You graciously granted that. Saxon was able to move forward. But in the development process of sketching out the plan, they realized, geez, we've got these two different properties. If we can consolidate those units and put them into one building, we've got better efficiencies. So we looked into doing that. The issue that we found was that in the previous contract rezone, we had set the number of total units at 10 Avon at 210. And so when we brought those other units, those 35 other units from across the street into the building, we couldn't do it because, again, the density, we were capped at 210. So the request in front of you tonight is just to say, is to keep the total number at 245, but just to allow those additional 35 units to migrate over so we can consolidate all the units in one building on 10 Avon Street.
Any questions for Mr. Bass? Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else for public comment on this item? All right, back to the council. Call the roll.
Council from Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
Yes.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
And Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Agenda item number 15.
Item number 15, order replacing the city master policies number 40, tree bait, and 62, tree planting policy, with a new tree planting policy, master policy number 62. Requested action to approve the order replacing the city master policies 40, tree bait, and 62, tree planting policy, with a new tree planting policy, master policy number 62.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Counselor Ray, seconded by Counselor Lyson. Any discussion on the council? So I have a couple items. So in the policy, on page 3 and page 4, it makes reference to residents, and we had discussed not including a residency requirement for the policy, but rather making it property owners. So under 5.4 application, that first sentence uses the word residents. So I'd like to change
Yeah,
that.
if you'd like to amend that, you could just change resident to property owners.
Okay, and then on page 4, under 5.7, again, the first sentence.
I think it was changed up earlier in the policy and just missed those, so if you would make those corrections, that would be appropriate.
Anything else on the council? To the public? Sorry, Counselor Lyson?
Yeah, I just wanted to take a friendly amendment when it's appropriate to add that to it.
Thank you. We'll so note it. Thank you.
And do you need the second to?
Counselor Ray made the motion and Counselor Lyson seconded, so if they both concur to incorporate that into their motion.
I concur.
Thank you.
Great. To the public? Back to the council. Counselor Ray?
I just wanted to thank everyone for their work on this, because it came from citizens asking for these changes, and so, and especially through the Healthy Neighborhoods process. So thanks everyone for playing, I don't know, participating, there we go.
Call the roll.
Counselor from Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
Yes.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7 to 0.
Agenda item number 16.
Item number 16, resolve amending Master Policy Number 81, miscellaneous fees and penalties to establish penalties for violations of the rental registration ordinance. Requested action to approve the resolve amending Master Policy Number 81, miscellaneous fees and penalties to establish penalties for violations of the rental registration ordinance.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Counselor LaJoy, seconded by Counselor Lyson. Discussion on the council, Counselor Ray.
It still says potions instead of portions in the resolve, under failure to register first month for potions thereof. So we should just auto-correct that.
Costly potions.
It's funnier when it happened
Okay.
around
On Halloween.
We'll accept that there's an R there. Spell check misses those.
Especially in
Can't
potions.
let Microsoft run your life.
Further discussion on the council? To the public? Back to the council? Counselor Marquez?
As I said in workshop, I didn't like the total dollar amount that it would come to if someone was in violation for the entire year. So I'll be voting against this.
Further discussion on the council? Call the roll.
Counselor from Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
No.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 6 to 1.
Agenda item number 17.
Item number 17, amendments to the city business license fee schedule policy regarding the fees for marijuana businesses. Requested action to approve the proposed amendment to the city business licensing fee schedule policy, policy manual number 7, as recommended by the city administrator.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Counselor Lyson, seconded by Counselor Beam. Any discussion on the council? To the public?
Hello, my name is Alex McMahon. I live and work at 40 Lisbon Street, the Healing Community Medco. We actually just opened our new location yesterday at 741 Main Street, across the street from Martin's. First off, I just want to say thank you to the council and the mayor for taking our input into consideration over these past few months. It's been great working with you. There's been a lot of back and forth, and I feel like we've landed on overall something well-written and reasonable and fair for an ordinance. We currently operate now 2 storefronts and 1 manufacturing facility in Lewiston. Under the new fee structure, we'll be paying $12,500 annual to the city of Lewiston in licensing fees. The city staff so far has made itself highly available, and with the increase in budget, I'm looking forward to working even closer with the city in the coming years. I just want to thank everybody again, and let everybody know that we at Medco will be doing our part to help the industry evolve in a manner that satisfies the city, the stakeholders, and the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? Back to the council. Call the roll.
Counselor from Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
Yes.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
And Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7 to 0.
Agenda item number 18.
Item number 18, order approving the home agreement with Blake and Pine LP and authorizing the city administrator to execute the same. Requested action to approve the order approving the home agreement with Blake and Pine LP and authorizing the city administrator to execute the same.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Counselor Lyson, seconded by Counselor Ray. Any discussion on the council? Link, you want to give us an overview?
Sure. Thank you. Catherine Elliott from Avesta Housing is up in the front row. She's probably a familiar face by this point. This is really the last action that the council is being asked to make in support of this project. It was referenced in the TIF document that the city council approved earlier this summer. Basically, this project is a 35-unit mixed-income housing project. 28 of these units will be workforce housing. They're getting $325,000 of home funds, which will be used to help with the construction of the project. In exchange for that $325,000, they will designate 2 of the units as home units. They will be floating units, so if they put somebody in who's income qualified, and then their income goes up, and all of a sudden they're no longer income qualified, the next property that becomes available for rent would then become the home unit. So it's very good for maintaining that affordable housing. And the document we're asking you to approve is really all the legal jargon that needs to be done to meet HUD's qualifications. And so both the Vesta's attorneys, the city's attorneys have worked to get this in final form. It really outlines all the details of what needs to be addressed. And with that, I'd open it up to questions.
Any questions, discussion on the council? To the public? Back to the council? Guess we don't need you tonight, Ling.
I'm not
Call
done
the
yet.
roll. Call the roll, Kathy.
Counselor from Ward 6?
Yes?
Ward 7?
No.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
No.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
And Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 5 to 2.
Agenda item number 19.
Item number 19, order authorizing staff to take steps to dispose of the Martell School and associate property. Requested action to approve the order authorizing staff to take steps to dispose of the Martell School and associate property.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Counselor Ray, seconded by Counselor Pettingill. Any discussion on the council? Counselor Marcotte.
We had had some discussion about language on preferences.
Yes.
Quickly looking through this, I'm not seeing where that made it to this document, unless I'm just skimming too fast to see it.
It's on the first page of the draft RFP under background. Council's preference is for the city to retain the open space and playground area. So that's up there at the head. And in the next paragraph, the city council has expressed a preference that the exterior of the historic initial school building be retained if possible. So that's covered there as well.
Okay, and that's on the page of the bid document. Right on the first page of the bid document.
Yes.
Under background. Thank you.
One thing that I wanted to note on the third page, which is the, I guess it's the form that the bidder would fill out.
Yes.
It says 147 Sabata Street at the top.
That's because that was what I copied this from. It'll be fixed in the final version.
That was a long time ago.
It was a long time ago. I used that because that was a similar project. We were trying to get people to provide bids on a redevelopment project.
Can I proofread this before you send it out?
If you wish, I'll be glad to have purchasing do that.
Any other discussion on the council? To the public? Back to the council. Call the roll.
Counselor from Ward 6?
Yes?
Ward 7?
Yes.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7 to 0.
Agenda item number 20.
Item number 20, order authorizing the execution of a municipal quitclaim deed and any other required documents for the sale of the property at 86 Nichols Street. Requested action to approve the order authorizing the execution of a quitclaim deed and any other required documents for the sale of the property at 86 Nichols Street.
So before I take motions, I'm going to actually recuse myself from this item as an employee of Bates College.
I will also be recusing myself as an employee of Bates College.
And do you want to nominate?
And since there is no chair, I would like to nominate Councilor LaJoy to serve as chair pro tem for this item.
Sure, so it's been moved to nominate Councilor LaJoy as the presiding officer for this agenda item. Is there a second?
A second.
Second, so it's been moved and seconded to nominate Councilor LaJoy as the presiding officer for this item. We'll take a roll call vote for that. Councilor from Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
Yes.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
And Ward 4.
Yes.
Motion passes, so Councilor LaJoy is now the presiding officer for this agenda item.
Okay.
Would you read the item?
Sure, so the motion before you is to approve the order authorizing the execution of a quitclaim deed and any other required documents for the sale of the property at 86 Nickel Street.
I would make the motion to use option B.
Okay.
I have a motion. I need a second. May I have a second from someone?
Second?
Okay. So we can move that question.
Right, so just for clarification,
Why don't you let me give you some background here?
Very good.
We received, unlike some of the other properties, we received two separate bids for 86 Nickel Street. One was from Bates College in the amount of $20,000, and the second was from Kevin and Erica Frisbee in the amount of $14,800. If you look at the map that's attached in your packet, you will see that we've got different properties outlined. The property outlined in red is the Frisbee property. That property includes 3 buildings that are adjacent to the lot that we're looking for. They are looking to use this lot for parking for their tenants in those properties. The property outlined in blue is the property that's generally owned by Bates College in the immediate area. They have no immediate plans for that area, would retain it for, in the interim, until they do have a plan for it as open space. We have representatives of both the Frisbees and Bates College here tonight who can address their plans and answer any questions you may have. The purchasing agent, in looking at this, recommended accepting the $20,000 bid from Bates College as the high bid. However, I think one of the things that's clear in this instance is that you may want to take a look at the plans and need each party expresses for that property for their uses. So that's why you were given 2 options. In effect, there's no staff recommendation at this level other than what the purchasing agent recommended early on in evaluating these bids. And the parties are here if you want to hear from them or ask them any questions.
Any more comments from the council?
Yeah,
Representative Lyson.
I would, when the Bates representatives, I know they're talking about not having a plan to the future, but what about care of the property in the interim until that decision gets made, if we were to go in that direction?
Yeah. Hi, City Council. I'm Jeffrey Swift. I'm the Vice President for Finance and Administration and the Treasurer at Bates College. Our goal is to maintain it, I think, more or less consistent with how it is. I don't think we plan to do anything dramatic one way or the other with the parcel. So to your question about maintaining it, I don't think I don't plan to put the resources to it to make it a manicured lawn, but I certainly wouldn't let it get overly unkempt.
All set, Councilor Lyson?
Yes, thank you.
And in the interim, with the property not being used for institutional purposes, it would be tax paying. I would anticipate at some point in the future, if it did become institutionally used, then it would go to nonprofit, tax exempt.
Yeah, we have no plans in the foreseeable future. That's long term. I mean, yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions for me, for Bates? Happy to field them.
Good. Thank you. Any further comments? Please, sir.
My name's Kevin Frisbee, 656 Main Street. As you indicated on your maps, we own 3 properties adjacent, and the parking in that neighborhood is really, really bad. In fact, 111 Wood Street, which we purchased about 6 months ago, the city didn't allow us to cut the curb. There's a parking space between 2 of our buildings. So we actually made that into a sitting area with some benches and some plants. So now we need the additional parking. We have 34 people that in 15 rentals in those 3 buildings, 29 adults, 5 children. So 29 adults, most of them working adults with jobs, have vehicles, and particularly in the wintertime, it's very difficult on that corner. And you can tell that the properties we own, we've taken care of. 111 Wood Street is under being resided right now. We've done a lot of work in those properties, so it would be incredibly helpful for the tenants. And again, I'm glad to see the housing coming into the city. One of the biggest problems, as you know, we have in the city is housing and quality housing. So we're trying to do our best as landlords to attract quality tenants, and the parking would be very helpful. And as a financial advisor, if the city of Lewiston was a client, long-term, if they turn that into a nonprofit, no tax revenue, as a taxpayer in the city, it doesn't bode well for the city to take that off the rolls. And Bates College is a great neighbor. I love what they do in the neighborhood, but at the end of the day, long-term, even though our bid was what the city was asking, it's not the full bid of what Bates College offered. The other point I want to make is the city purchasing agent actually reached out to Bates, asking him if it was going to be a tax-paying property. I did not get the chance to amend my bid. It was a sealed bid. So you want to take that into consideration as well.
Just to clarify, we reached out to Bates at the request of the council to get that question answered. That was why we contacted Bates.
Any further comments from the audience? Hearing and seeing none, back to the council. Councilor Marcotte.
I had a question for the recent person at the podium. I assume that the parcel is currently dirt, grass?
It's grass, it's got boulders around. We're going to treat it in our plan, just like we did for 22 Wakefield Street. We purchased a lot from the city, we gravelled it out and kept the boulders around, and we keep it really nice. It's a nice parking lot over there.
So you don't have any intention to pave it?
No, I don't think it's necessary. I think just a good gravel parking lot. If you pave it, then you get into maybe putting culverts and some other things that the city requires. We went down that road with 22 Wakefield, and I thought that the gravel was perfectly fine. We maintain it really nice over there on Wakefield Street.
I was just looking at an opportunity for more stormwater fee.
I know the situation.
Unfortunately, and Dale may have to correct me, gravel parking lots are considered impervious surface.
Is it?
Yes.
Okay.
So the stormwater fee does apply. That's different, yes, that's different.
Well, I find that advantageous. We would definitely be getting some stormwater fee out of this, as well as taxes in the immediacy. It's providing parking, which is much needed for the tenants in that neighborhood. I think that should be the best use for the property, and that's why I'm going to support this particular motion.
Any further discussion from the council? Yes, Councilor Pettingill.
So I hate to see property turned into parking at any time. It's not the best use of property. It doesn't move us forward in terms of development, but I do support keeping property on the tax roll, so I will be supporting this regardless of my disagreement with seeing cars sit on it.
Okay. Any further discussion from the council? Seeing no further discussions, we are going to be voting on Councilor Marcotte's motion to accept the second.
Yes, to approve the order with option B.
Option B.
Yes, option B.
And we have a second from Councilor Beam.
Yes.
So that's what we'll be voting on. So let's go for a roll call.
Sure, I'll read option B for the record, if that's okay.
Yes, for the
Great,
record, that's
thank
what
you.
I'm going for.
So option B is staff is hereby authorized to execute a quitclaim deed and any other required documents for the sale of 86 Nichols Street to Kevin and Erica Frisbee for $14,800 plus closing costs for the purpose of providing parking to tenants of abutting properties owned by the Frisbees, with the proceeds to be credited to the general fund. Counselor from Ward 6.
Yes.
Ward 7.
Yes.
Ward 1.
Yes.
Ward 2.
Yes.
And Ward 4.
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 5-0.
Thank you, Councilor LaJoy.
You're very welcome.
Agenda item number 21, please.
Item number 21, resolve accepting and appropriating a lead hazard control and green and healthy homes grant from the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development and authorizing the city administrator to execute the required grant agreements. Requested action to approve the resolve accepting and appropriating a lead hazard control and green and healthy homes grant from the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development and authorizing the city administrator to execute the required grant agreements.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilor Ray, seconded by Councilor Lyson. Any discussion on the council? I just want to say congratulations to our Economic and Community Development Department. Thank you for your good and hard work. To the public. Back to the council. Call the roll.
Council from Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
Yes.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
And Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7 to 0.
Agenda item number 22,
Item
the one
number
we've all been
22.
waiting for.
Resolve calling upon the Maine legislature to support an extended producer responsibility for packaging law. Requested action to approve the resolve calling upon the Maine legislature to support an extended producer responsibility for packaging law.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Counselor Lyson, seconded by Counselor LaJoy. Discussion on the council. To the public.
I'm Sean Monteith, resident of Lewiston, Ward 6, 20 Judith Street.
Good evening, I'm Jacob Morin, 5 St. Patrick Ave, Ward 1.
Wow, so, hello. We're here today to ask for your endorsement onto the recycling bill, it's more or less the Recycling Reform Act. Every other developed nation in the world already has this law in place. And what it's essentially designed to do is to place the onus of cost, rather than on municipalities and consumers, to instead be placed onto the larger waste producers or companies and corporations, the companies that produce the packaging of which is non-recyclable. And all this law and all your endorsement does is urges the state to say, yes, we want to have companies produce more eco-friendly packaging. In the long run, what this does is it produces packaging that essentially reduces the amount of which goes to either incinerators or to our landfills. And that from there, when we have more recyclable packaging, can be used into multiple other goods. I know there is other concerns of taxes increasing or consumer good prices increasing. That is unlikely due to the actual cost of waste, because it's just per pennies per pound of actual waste. And when these companies are going to be taxed for producing this waste, it will force them to actually move to a more eco-friendly route, which is cheaper on multiple levels for many different parties, including municipalities and consumers. As a representative, you are elected to vote in the interests of your electorate, of your constituencies. This bill in this endorsement, let alone, would work within the interests of your constituency on many different levels, which is why we need you to vote yes on this, because it urges the state of Maine to actually start moving towards the proper direction of putting in place laws to start actually solving these very complex crises of waste production and increased recyclable materials. Thank you.
Am I on the time of this current session? Because I wasn't sure of the process, and I have a separate thing to speak about.
So it's public comment, so you each get 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. So I am a member of the Recycling and Waste Management Committee, and as well as the president of Lewiston High School's Environmental Club. I just have some words regarding the committee and the city policy and such. As a student at the school, I get to see firsthand the passion and drive that thrives among the youth of this city to create real and focused progress and change for our community. This is prominent in regards to environmental matters, as well as with improving the quality of life of our people. We are in the midst, globally, of a full-fledged environmental movement, which can't be held back at this point. And recycling and waste management is a major facet of this, as it affects people of communities directly. If it's said youth today are lazy and apathetic, I can assure you that's not the case. We are on our way to creating much-needed change in communities. And money is a significant aspect of all policy, and there are many who are well-minded in that regard. And change would never occur without a foundation of empathy and love for our planet and community. And I see this in the hearts of students and today's youth all the time. One thing I would love to see is a greater push for programs and activities within the city and community that involve youth and citizens in general, directly within important matters to grow and improve Lewiston. It's interesting for me to look around at peers and friends. I interact with that school on a daily basis, and you can do the same if you know people, and just kind of wonder what people I know will become these future policymakers and city officials and bringers of great change for the better. And they're out there in the city today, so it's crucial to harbor this knowledge and interest, for it is the future of our city, our country, and the world. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? Back to the council. Councilor Ray.
So I just wanted to voice my support for this resolve and also thank the youth for coming out for this. I think at the workshop, we talked a lot about how this is, we need to act for future generations, and they're here talking to us, so I think we should be responsive to that. I think it was a little confusing at the workshop about what we're doing with the state rules and the LD that was already passed, but I think hearing further explanation, asking further questions since that workshop has answered a lot of it for me.
Councilor Dean.
The Recycle Committee has worked really, really hard preparing for this meeting and presenting the facts. And so we were a little more organized this time. And we've also been working really, really hard to gather facts and information, talk to a lot of people, and we're expanding now to talking to other cities and to what they're doing. So I know there's a lot of enthusiasm on this little committee, and I certainly hope you can all support the committee and its interest in having manufacturers pay for their packaging. And I think it might encourage the manufacturers to reduce the packaging.
Councilor Marcotte.
I'm not going to kid myself that this is a back room or back door avenue to raise more taxes. We have 1.3 million people in the state of Maine. We're not going to move manufacturers to change what they package their product in. We're just going to receive more tax revenue as the result. So I'm not going to support that based on that particular aspect. Oh, and just one more thing. A few years back, there was a beverage bill, similar issue. It particularly rubbed people wrong along the Maine and New Hampshire borders. So that goes to the same sort of argument as the impact of being able to buy items from across. If they're more expensive here, we'll go over to New Hampshire and buy the product, bring the trash back here and put it into the landfills and impact the state of Maine. So unless this policy was driven at a higher level, regional or national, I don't see the import or impact of this except to raise more taxes in the state of Maine when other avenues are seeing a lot of pushback. Thank you.
Further discussion on the council. Councilor Lyson.
Yeah. On the other hand, I mean, we're also producing, we've talked about our recycling costs and how, the markets have changed and whatever. This, I think, will help stabilize some of that. I do think it will help the citizens of Lewiston in particular and help us with our cost of recycling and encourage even increased recycling. And I disagree with the fact that if we, again, and Madam Mayor, you may be able to answer this question. This is not a study group. This is like an order to have the DEP develop these rules. And basically our resolve would be, hey, we support looking into this and creating it, and there'll still be careful review and analysis of some of those recommendations. So I think this is a no-brainer. I also think that, sometimes there's been concerns that we're too far ahead of the game, but, if it's a good idea, I think we should support it, and I think this is a good idea.
Councilor Penn, go.
So just to go off a few comments, I support recycling and I support efforts to increase recycling, but at what cost? It was mentioned that this would impact only large companies. What's the threshold for that? What determines a large company? What's that impact to small business? The United States is made up of 30.2 million small businesses. 99.9% of our homegrown economy is supported by small businesses, the mom and pop shops that we all go to. And a lot of these manufacturers, Maine is home to a very large craft brew industry that would be hit by this. It's not cheap to recycle. It's not cheap to use recyclable materials. These businesses, it's going to cost them money to do the right thing and to recycle. That cost will be passed on to the consumer because they have to pay the people in their business to do the work to put this out for consumers to provide. If we want to tackle recycling issues, we need to look at consumer habits and buying patterns. When you buy a package from Amazon, the reason there's 700 pounds of packing materials in that is because stuff gets broken in shipping, whether or not that's logistics or fraudulent claims, a whole number of gamut of issues. The business has to pay for that. While I think that this is on the right train of thought, there needs to be some more weight behind it. Maine is not going to drive the needle for this. California, doubles in size with us. They've got much more buying power. If you want to affect how these companies package their materials and the way that they do business, stop buying from them. They'll notice that. Taxing them, they're not even going to bat an eye because they're going to pass it on to the end user. So I support the idea behind this and the spirit of it, but I don't support the way that this is because it's going to get passed on to the consumer.
Any further discussion on the council? Call the roll.
Counselor from Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
No.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
No?
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 5 to 2.
Sorry. Agenda item number 23. Councilor Ray.
I have a school committee update. So last night we had a regular meeting in which we received an update on the superintendent's entry plan, about 4 or 5 months since he presented that to us. And I'd say the overwhelming response from the committee was just really impressed with the involvement that the superintendent has had in day-to-day operations of the Lewiston public school system, and how open he is to feedback. Speaking of that, we also entered into a discussion of the superintendent's evaluation, which will be completed by the end of the calendar year. We are trying to be responsible in looking at the contract and the policies that we have in place for superintendent evaluation. Even though we have we never approved goals for this new superintendent. We approved goals for the previous superintendent. We are working with the current superintendent to develop a set of metrics that will be suitable in his evaluation and will carry forward to the next school committee's process so that they have a benchmark to work from.
Thanks.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you for your work on the school committee. And also, there was a mention that we have no curriculum department in the schools. Could you address that?
So it's not that we don't have a curriculum department. The new superintendent has assessed that it is not a sufficiently organized model to move our schools forward. And so I'd say like the best correlation is, so the director of public works just came to us with amendments to the structure of his department and what the roles are and whose responsibilities they are. And so we need to conduct a similar needs assessment in the curriculum space, and then move forward with reorganizing. A result of that has been 2 federally funded positions have come out of the budget timeline that we normally follow. So the first is a continuous school improvement coordinator position that was hired for and is working with site administrators to build up their collection and understanding of data in order to make process improvements. And then the second part is a social and emotional learning coordinator that we kind of gave the thumbs up to last night and will be hired at the end of the calendar year or into the new year to start working on that component of curriculum for the whole district. I think there are other needs that are being identified, and we've just got to figure out what the priorities are and who they fall with. And it's not to say that the people in that department currently don't work their tails off and do good work. It's just, as we assess the system as a whole, is everything where it needs to be? Not really quite yet. So he wants to create a plan for that once he understands it better.
Just a suggestion is, going forward, that our school representative should brief the council on what decisions get made along those lines, because that was I mean, the other number was 6,000 students, too. That's a pretty significant size. And it seems to me that a well functioning curriculum department would be appropriate for a school system that size. So, thank you.
Councilor Marcotte.
The Lewiston Auburn, or I should say Auburn Lewiston Airport Board met recently and approved a capital improvement program. Not sure if the Director of Finance has seen it yet. It's actually a 4-year plan, didn't have the 5th year in it. There were 3 items in the first year that they're looking for in our budget process next spring. I pushed for making a priority 1 out of the fire equipment, and it went from $50,000 to $100,000. There were some more expensive items in the list as well, but I'd really advocate that the fire equipment gets purchased. There's nothing like a fire in an airport. And it's going to be expensive to do all 3. Hopefully, we can do all 3, but I'm not advocating the elimination of the fire equipment if we have to make a cut somewhere from our side of the river. Obviously, Auburn has to come up with the other 50%.
Thank you. Any other updates from councilors? Do I have a motion?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
I have a motion by Councilor Ray, seconded by Councilor Lyson. All those in favor?
Motion passes.